Hey guys, Spencer Van here, and I just want to start by saying you're going to get exactly what was promised in the title and in the thumbnail of this video, which is step-by-step how to go from 0 to 1 deal or 2 deals or 3 deals per month, how to go from $0 to $12,000 per month. Of course, I just want to put this on record, disclaimer. Obviously, I can't guarantee you're going to get those results from a YouTube video, but I can guarantee that I'm going to show you exactly how a bunch of people have. And that's my next point, is the reason why I'm qualified to make these videos is because my company, surplusfund.com, has literally helped, at this point, hundreds of people go from have never even heard of surplus funds or overages or whatever, to closing their first deal, to literally now we've had results where people have gone to $100,000 a month in profit. We've had people go from 0 to $150,000 in profit in 21 days. We've had just crazy results. Now, look, am I the all-knowing God of surplus funds? Of course not. Okay, I don't know everything upon everything, but I feel pretty qualified in helping people go and get their first deal or get their first couple deals or whatever the case may be. And there's nothing for sale on any of these videos. I just want to provide value, and the only catch, if you could even call it a catch, is if you enjoy these videos and if you want to get more content like this, I ask that you subscribe and turn on the notification bell, specifically because once a month I do a little post on my YouTube and I give out a link for 2 to 3 people to get a free course if they see the link, but you're only going to see that in time if you're subscribed and if you get the notification bell. So click that little notification bell, subscribe, and when I drop the link for the free course that, again, people have paid a lot for, you're going to be able to get in there for free just by clicking that link when it pops up first. Now, the last thing I wanted to say before we jump into the content here is my goal with this series or course, or whatever you want to call this on YouTube here, is to get everyone the exact steps they need to go out and get their first deal and make up to 12K or maybe even more on that first deal within 30 days of starting this. So please follow along. Please be taking notes. As well as I might be making a little PDF to go with this. So be checking the description as well as for the full playlist link. And with that being said, let's jump right into it. All right, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And to start this guide, we're going to be talking about kind of the 3, I call it the Triad of Success. And that's a horrible name, but I think you guys get the point, of surplus funds. And there's really 3 big things that you need to do correctly in order to have any level of success at surplus funds. Even if it's 1 deal or 100 deals, you have to do these 3 things correct, okay? The first thing is you have to be able to get data, okay, and filter data and handle data efficiently and correctly. And what I mean by data is leads, okay, but not only leads, it's filtering the leads. It's, using a CRM. It's, skip tracing. It's all of those things. You have to be doing that very, very well, okay? The second thing is you got to be doing sales well, right? So you might have all the leads in the world, but if you can't get any of them to work with you, what is the point, okay? So we're going to have a video on sales, okay? And then the third video we're going to have in this program is, or course, or whatever you want to call us on YouTube here, is going to be the processing. So now we've got the leads, we've closed a deal, at least got them to say yes. Now what do we do? Okay, what do we send them? How do we send it? How do we make sure it actually gets signed? Because that's a big problem a lot of people has. They don't actually get signed. Okay, they don't actually get the contract signed. And how do we get that deal processed to where it actually turns into money? Okay. And these is kind of the big 3 things of this program. But before we can really talk about that, we have to talk about the foundation that this triad sits upon, okay? And this is where it becomes really important that I define for you what I mean by the term or by the phrase surplus fund, because it is not the same thing technically as an overage or a excess proceed or anything like that. I'm referring to something similar, and technically an excess proceed or an overage is a type of surplus fund, but it's not all combined, okay? It's surplus fund is a much broader term, and it's extremely important you understand exactly what I'm talking about, because if you don't, you're going to be lost and you're not going to be able to get that first deal in 30 days, which again is my goal in this program. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about here is the 4 niches of surplus funds. And this is something that I haven't really seen anyone else talk about, because the truth is, there's a reason why I use the phrase surplus fund and I don't say overage or excess proceed. Because overage and excess proceed, it only talks about helping people recover money from, typically like tax overages or mortgage overages, okay? And that's great, but that doesn't really make any sense, because those are only 2 of the 4 niches. And one of the niches that is not included in an overage or an excess proceed actually has more money there than mortgage overages and tax overages combined. It actually has like 10 times the amount of money there. It's got north of 50 billion, and that's just in one of the other 2 niches that is not an overage or an excess proceed. So there's a reason why I'm using the phrase surplus fund. Okay, but anyways, the four main niches of surplus funds are as follows. So of course you've got your mortgage funds, okay? And yes, MF, I know it's very funny, okay? Then you've got your tax funds, okay? Now again, these are the basic stuff I'm assuming a lot of you guys already know. If you don't, no worries at all. All it is when a house goes to foreclosure via either a mortgage or, meaning they're behind on their mortgage, or via a tax sale, meaning they're behind on their taxes. And either way, the house sells at auction for more than what they owe, and that excess amount or that surplus amount or whatever you want to call it is a surplus fund. Okay, so those are the 2 most known niches, especially here on YouTube. That's pretty much all anyone talks about. Okay, now the next niche that is, in my opinion, the best niche to start out if you are a beginner, and the only reason why I say that is because with this niche, there's a lot less moving parts, and there's about 100x more leads, just total. Okay, so for every 1 lead here, there's probably 100, if not 200 leads in this one niche. Okay, and that's called a state fund. So I'm going to put state just so you don't get that confused with surplus fund. Okay, so state fund. Okay, and all a state fund is, it is money that is owed to someone that the state is temporarily holding on to until they can return it to their rightful owner. Now, this means about a billion different things, okay? It could mean that a mortgage fund was never recovered and it got sent to the state. That does happen in most states. But it could also mean that, someone had an insurance payment or payout from a grandma that was never recovered, and it's gone 2 generations, and now the granddaughter is owed it and she doesn't even know, okay? Stock, dividends or something that were not paid out. I mean, there's literally a million different ways that money can end up at the state. And that's why at the state alone, there's, again, $50 billion, actually more than that. Someone put almost 100 billion. I don't know exactly, obviously, what the number is, but it's more than 50 billion, which is easily 10 times the amount of money that is at these 2 places combined, which is why it's so silly when I see people say, oh, don't do state funds, because literally by not doing state funds when you start, you're making your life 10 times harder, okay, which you don't want to do when you're brand new, okay? So on top of that, the other reason why I love state funds is typically no attorneys needed, where in many cases an attorney is needed for tax and mortgage funds. And by the way, even in places where tax and mortgage funds don't need an attorney, when you're a beginner, you still probably want to use one because you don't know what the heck you're doing, okay? So it's really nice to have somebody like, hey, you're filling this out wrong. You might want to do this correctly, okay? And then the last niche that we talk a lot about is, and we put it in the big 4, is bankruptcies, okay? And yes, there is a such thing as a bankruptcy fund. It's not a rare thing in terms of, like, it happens all the time, but it's a rare thing in terms of not a lot of people talk about it. And so what this is, I mean, it is what it sounds like it is. It's when someone's owed money after they file bankruptcy for whatever reason, okay? And we're not going to be talking a lot about this. To be quite honest with you, I think I would be doing you a disservice if I talked about this. I personally am not a bankruptcy expert. It's something we've played around with in our business a little bit. It's something that we've added to the members area of our course, Surplus Fund Mastery, that some of our students have had some success with, but I don't feel qualified to talk about that. In the future, maybe I can come on here when I have a little more experience under my belt, or I can have my business partner come on here and explain more about bankruptcies. If you guys would like to see that, let me know in the comments section down below. So for the remainder of this course, we're going to be focusing on these 3 niches, okay, state funds, mortgage funds, and tax funds, and kind of breaking down the best place to start and how to get your first deal in 30 days, because that's the goal I want from this program or from this mini course, whatever you want to call this, is that everyone that watches this can get their first deal in 30 days, okay? Now, before we jump into which niche out of those 3 niches is the best place to start, I want to talk about a couple things that everybody seems to want to ignore here on YouTube and other courses that I've seen. And that is, the truth is, guys, there is a few things that they're keys to having success in this business. That if you don't do it, it doesn't matter. I can teach you all the tactics. I can literally just give you a sheet of leads and give you contracts and then give you an exact script, or I can even just make the calls for you. You're not going to be able to get a deal without these couple keys, okay? The first thing is, and by the way, before I jump into this stuff, it's going to sound really, really, really basic, and you're like, oh yeah, that's so obvious, Spencer, I know that. But there's a reason why most people don't get deals in most other programs and channels and all this. It's because they don't talk about this stuff. This is the most important stuff, okay? The first thing is you have to have a consistent schedule for marketing. You don't walk into the gym once a month, okay, for an hour, and then you end up like, Ronnie Coleman or something, okay? Or if you don't know who Ronnie Coleman is, just think like Arnold Schwarzenegger or like a really buff guy, okay? That's not, you don't walk in there once a month and do that, okay? They're in the gym like 6 hours a day, 7 days a week or 6 days a week, okay? Now, the good thing is you're not necessarily trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger of surplus funds, okay? Meaning you don't need to be like the greatest person to ever do this unless that's what you want to do. But assuming you just want to get your first deal or your first couple deals, you don't need to do 6 hours, 6 days a week, okay? Just put like an hour a day, okay? An hour a day, okay? 2 hours a day. And specifically that time towards marketing, because here's the thing, guys. You can sit here and you can learn all you want to learn, and I'm going to teach you the best ways to market, so make sure you watch that video when it comes out. And you can learn, how to get data correctly and all these different things. And learning is extremely important, but it gets to a point where you just have to take action. And you have to set yourself up on a schedule where every single day at relatively the same time, I sit down for an hour and I make cold calls, or I do texts, or I do emails, or whatever your method of marketing is, which again, we'll talk about in video number 2 or 3 of this program. You'll see it. I'll link the playlist description down below, okay? But if you do not have a consistent time to market, it doesn't work on the fly, okay? Surplus funds is not a business that you can do in your free time when you feel like it and get results. I'm just telling you straight up. A lot of people won't tell you this on YouTube. If you want to get, like, hey, everything's going to be great, go to a different channel. I'm trying to get you results. The truth is, guys, you need a consistent time of marketing, okay? That's number 1. So right now in your schedule, I want you to look at your calendar. If you don't have a calendar, just think in your head, what's my daily schedule? What time do I go to work every day? What time do I get home? What time do I go to school? What time do I get home? Whatever it is you do every day, think about those times and think about, okay, I'm going to devote from 5 to 7 p.m. every single day on marketing my business, specifically marketing. The only way you can get a deal is if you're marketing for a deal. A deal doesn't just knock on your door, okay? Now, the second huge principle that nobody talks about here on YouTube is the idea of going broad versus going deep in a market, okay? And the truth is, guys, it's so much easier to get your first deal and to get a deal if you go deep into a market versus trying to go broad right away, okay? So what do I mean by going broad versus going deep? I'm going to tell you guys 2 stories of students. I'm not going to use their names, okay? But 2 students that we've had come through Surplus Fund Mastery that did the exact opposite. One went broad, okay? One went super deep, okay? So what I mean by broad is this particular student, she started off researching state funds. And so she was going to initially do state funds in Texas, okay? I believe it was Texas or Oklahoma or something like that. And then she, maybe did some marketing for 1 or 2 days. She was like, I'm not really feeling this. So then she's like, let me try. I believe it was either tax or mortgage funds. It's been like a year, I don't remember. But we'll just say she jumped into tax funds, okay? Because I don't remember. And then she was like, I don't really like this either. So then she's like, let me try state funds in like some crazy state. It was like Hawaii or something. Like, let me jump to state funds over there. And then I was like, I don't really like this either. Let me jump into mortgage funds in a completely different state. And this went on. It was like every 2 weeks she was jumping from state and niche to state to niche to state, like just jumping all over geographically and all over the place, okay? This is going broad. This is trying to do everything, and this does not work until you have a giant team of people. In fact, I'm a person I've seen do this successfully. Well, that's not true. I've seen a couple people do it, but one of great examples of this is one of our previous students and one of our coaches now, Rick. His business operates in like 6 or 7 states, but he's got like 13, 14 people working for him. Don't quote me on that. Rick, you might be watching this. I don't know exactly how many people you have working for you, but a lot, okay? So a lot of you guys are starting off just by yourself. And so if you're trying to compete with Rick at his own game and he's got 13 more people than you, it's going to be really difficult to do that, okay? So instead, you want to do what Rick really can't do, okay? And what anybody at scale can't do, which is to go deep into a market. So instead of being like, hey, I'm going to do state funds in this state, and then never mind, let me not do that. Let me do this, and let me do this, and let me do this, and then never getting a deal. Just pick one thing, and then just stick with it. And it's actually easier. Now, this sounds really obvious. And you guys are probably like, why are you making a course on YouTube telling us about this? And I promise you guys we're going to get into the tactical stuff and all that stuff you guys want to hear. But if they're going to be tempted at times when you pick your state to do state funds or tax funds, whatever you end up doing, okay, and you start making contacts there, you're going to be tempted. If you make 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 contacts and don't get any real deals, you're going to be like, man, maybe I picked a bad state. Maybe I picked a bad niche. Maybe I shouldn't have listened to Spencer, right? Or whoever, okay? And that's not the case, guys, okay? The case is that you just haven't figured out how to work that state yet. You haven't figured out how to work that niche yet, okay? So please pick one thing and just stick with it. And then once you stick with it, I want you to learn as much as you can about it. And I want you to not take action, but I want you to learn. You should know more about your market than anybody else does, okay? Or at least be one of the top guys/gals in your market, okay? And I want you to be an expert. And then I want you to go the extra mile. Okay, so I said I was going to tell you 2 stories. I'm going to tell you another story here. In fact, I did an interview with her recently, Belinda. She, her most profitable deal, she's going to make $50,000 on. Yes, $50,000 in commission. Okay, that was a deal where she went, quote unquote, she went deep. Okay, and so what I mean by that is she had this deal, and she skip traced the deal. Okay, got some phone numbers. Called all those phone numbers, they were all the wrong numbers. Tried a different skip tracing site. A couple different numbers, but still all the wrong numbers. Tried another site. This went on for like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sites. Finally, she threw kind of a Hail Mary and just threw it into like a batch skip trace site, thinking nothing would come of it, and boom, she ended up with the right phone number. She calls this guy. Then, after getting the right phone number, then this guy is claiming to not be the right person. He's saying, no, it's not me, because he thinks it's a scam call. So then she's sitting there talking to him, trying to convince him that she's real and she's actually trying to help him and all that, okay, for like an hour. Finally, he's like, oh, yes, I'll do it, okay, and then she walks him through the contract, gets this contract signed, sends it in, and gets the deal processed, okay? So moral of the story is, if she would have been broad, she would have called this guy a couple times on the first skip trace site, said, it's not going to work, and went on to something else. Okay, but she spent the extra time, okay, to go deep into the market, to learn about the market, to try literally 7 to 8 different skip trace sites. I don't remember the exact number, okay, but a lot of skip trace sites, called a bunch of different numbers, all the wrong numbers, finally got the right one, and boom, she got a deal where she's going to make $50,000 on the deal. And that's why this is so important. Okay, so don't be going broad right away. Okay, when you have a team of 5, 10 people, then go broad. Then try to close volume, 100 deals a month, 50 deals a month, okay? But when you're first starting out, just try to get all the deals that fall through the cracks, okay? Try to spend that time going further than anyone else is willing to go to get that deal. And the third principle I want to talk about here is what I call why surplus funds. And I don't want to go on this long tirade, and I promise you guys this is going to be the last non-tactical part of this mini course, because I really just want to get to the tactical thing, but these 3 principles you have to understand in order to be successful in the first place. Only reason why I'm covering them. But you need to understand why you're doing this business, and you need to have a very clear and distinct why. And again, I know you're probably watching this thinking like, oh, I know my why, and I want to buy a house and all these things. And I'm not making fun of you if that's your goal. That's a great goal. But something really weird happened to me when I started making money that I want to share kind of a quick story with you. So when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot, okay? And so my goal was always I wanted to get a Mercedes-Benz C63, okay? Because I'll show some pictures here from a house like this because my younger brother is autistic and blah, blah, blah. You don't want to hear my sob story, but you get the point, okay? So I always wanted to get this car, C63. It's like $1,000 a month. It's like a $100,000 car. And I told myself when I got to $10,000 a month, I would buy the car, okay? And it took me like 2 or 3 years. I finally get to that level. I'm like on top of the world. And there's something inside of me that doesn't really want to buy the car yet. I didn't know what it was. I was like, well, maybe I'm just, 1,000 out of 10,000 is kind of a lot. And I'm like, plus I got to pay taxes. I'm like, maybe let's hold off. So I was like, all right, when we get to 20,000 a month, I'm going to buy the car, okay? So we get to 20,000 a month, still nothing. I just have this weird pit in my stomach. I'm like, I don't want to get the car yet. I don't know what it is, okay? Fast forward to 50,000 a month, same thing, 100,000, 200,000. We had a month this year, we did almost 300,000 in sales. And I tell you this not to brag or boast or anything like that, so please don't take it that way. But at this point now, I could have bought the car like 100 times, okay? But I haven't bought the car because what I realized is I got into business, yes, to make money, but not to buy flashy things, not to show off. And if that's your thing, that's cool. I'm not saying it's not the right thing. But what I am saying is I got into business because I want to help people. You know, I've donated more money from the money that I've made than I've spent on myself. I mean, last year alone, I think I donated like 20,000 or something, 20, 25,000. Don't quote me on that. I don't know exactly, okay? But personally, and then plus business donations and all that. So again, I'm not saying all this to brag, but understand that surplus funds is a very unique business and that you cannot lead with money, okay? You cannot lead with money, okay? And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money. And of course I want to make money. If I didn't, I would just retire, okay? And go live in Malibu or in, you know, Hawaii or something. But when you're talking on the phone to a client, you're not a stockbroker, okay? You can't lead with money. You have to lead from the heart. And I know this, again, probably sounds really silly and really cliche, and it's probably just like, let's jump into the course and the content and all that. I promise you it's gonna be really good. But you have to understand this concept. If you jump on phone calls, especially with tax funds, especially with mortgage funds, and you start talking to people about getting this money back and it's just all about the money for you, you're never gonna get a deal. I can pretty much guarantee you're never gonna get a deal. If you come on and you have a genuine conversation and you build a relationship with people and you genuinely care about their success, and you help them and coach them through it and guide them and obviously, you know, do your part of the deal, I mean, you're going to get as many deals as you can possibly, you know, work for, basically. You're not going to be capped on any deals, okay? So this sounds really weird, okay? There's nothing wrong with having a money goal. If your goal, hey, I want to get to 5,000, 10,000 a month, whatever, I want to get my first deal, whatever it is, totally great. But my point is understand that you're also doing this to help people. And if you show them that you're only in this for the money, you're not going to get a deal. You have to only portray to them, even if it's not true, but hopefully it is true, that you're coming from the heart and you're here to help people. And yeah, you're going to get paid in the process, and they know that. But I'm here to do a service and do a good thing for my fellow man or fellow woman or whatever you want to say. Okay? So again, I know this is really cliche, but this is the last kind of big principle I want to talk about before we jump into the tactical stuff in this video and in the rest of the course. I promise you there'll be nothing else like this. All right, guys, so with all that out of the way, we're going to jump into the tactical stuff. Again, I apologize for all that, but it is really important that you understand those three principles before we jump into this, okay? So the first thing we need to talk about is what niche should you work with? And before I jump into this, just understand that if you are dead set on one niche, like if you've watched a bunch of courses or videos on tax funds and you're like, I gotta do tax funds because it's the only thing I can do, and you're like just heart is in it, then do tax funds. That's fine, okay? Or same thing with mortgage funds. But ultimately, guys, my recommendation for a beginner, if you've never closed a deal, is always, always, always going to be to start with state funds. And there's a few key reasons why I want you to start here. The first thing is the process is about 1,000 times more smooth, okay, or easier to do as a beginner. So give you a couple examples of this. The first thing is many of the contracts that you need for state funds are located literally online on the state websites. Okay, there's a lot of state websites where you can literally just download the contract they want you to use and just use their contract. Okay, so that makes it really easy. You don't have to go and pay a lawyer to get contracts. Another reason is because same thing with the leads. Okay, now of course you can get leads online for mortgage funds. I mean, I own a lead site for that. Don't use it. Okay, don't buy anything I sell ever. Okay, just because again I told you I wouldn't sell anything. But with the state fund leads, it's a million times easier because it's literally for free and you can just download it right on the state website in many cases, okay? Or worst case, have them ship you a CD, okay, for like $10 in most cases, okay? So it's right there for you to use. Then when it comes to processing the deal, so you've gotten the contract signed. Now with mortgage funds or tax funds, you got to bring it to your attorney or you got to bring it to the court and you start filing things and it gets a little hectic. With state funds, you literally just send it into the state and then they just send you a check. Okay, worst case scenario in a couple states like New York, they send your client the full amount and you just invoice them with your contract that they signed attached to it saying, hey, you owe me 10% or whatever it is. Okay, now there's some things I've heard, some criticisms about state funds, some rumors, okay? A lot of people think that there's not that much Like each deal is lower in state funds. And I would say, overall, that's probably true. The amount of money per state fund deal is definitely lower because there's a lot for like $10. But there's also a ton of state fund deals for like $500,000, like $50,000, $100,000. We've even seen them for $1 million, $2 million. So that really doesn't make any sense to me because it's kind of silly. Okay. Another thing is that yes, you're capped at a commission rate. With mortgage funds, you can take more commission. You can take 30% or 50% or whatever you want to charge. Okay. And same thing with tax funds. A lot of times you can charge a lot more. And yes, that is true. In most states, you're capped between 10 and 20%. But quite frankly, honestly, if you're closing a $100,000 deal and you make 10 grand from that, your first deal, I think you're going to be pretty happy. Okay. I think you can be like, you know what? I learned a lot here. I can go and apply this to bigger deals and charge more. Okay. In the other niches. And that's kind of the last reason why I recommend this is because with state funds is, it kind of, really gives you a great foundation to learn the other niches. Okay. Because the thing is the only difference between a state fund versus a mortgage or tax fund is you have to deal with attorneys, you got to deal with your own contracts, you got to deal with people that just lost their house. So it just adds a lot more complexity to it. But the sales aspect is the same, right? You're still going to market almost the same. Your script might change a little bit, so that's exactly the same. And then your follow-up process is the same after they've signed the contract. You just let them know, hey, this is what's going on. Okay. And on top of that, because everything's smoother, you can really master these things and be a really good sales / marketer, before you jump into, dealing with kind of the more, I don't want to say difficult, but more complicated niches of mortgage funds and tax funds. Okay. So to summarize all this, I really recommend you start with state funds, but it doesn't matter. Okay. Just pick one and stick with it. In this course, I'll cover, all three of these, okay, to a level. I'm going to be focusing on if you're doing state funds. But again, if you want like, hey, I want to do my first deal as a tax fund, don't worry. I got you covered. I'm going to talk about how to market to them, how to find leads, all that for tax funds and mortgage funds, okay, as well as obviously state funds. So, but yes, if you're brand new, unless you're just like, I have to do tax funds because some guy on YouTube said I have to, then that's fine. I guess do that. But, literally, the last reason, I think I mentioned this earlier, is for every one tax fund, there is probably 100 to 500 state funds. That's exactly what we're going to be covering in part 2, which is exactly how to get leads and data with state funds, how to get leads and data with mortgage funds, and how to get leads and data with tax funds. So you can go out and actually have people to contact. And then once you have their leads and data, how to filter it, how to skip trace it, and the most accurate skip tracers to use, the least expensive skip tracers to use, and so on and so forth. And that will all be covered in part 2. So it'd be kind of a shame if you missed out on that and you were just stuck on this cliffhanger. So I'd really recommend, again, you click that button down below, you subscribe, and you click the notification bell so you get notified right when part 2 comes out. And when I do my once a month, course giveaway, you can be one of those first 2 to 3 people to see it and actually get access to it versus being late and watching as people get free access to the course that you could have gotten for free, but now you have to pay for. So subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you